Hello everyone, I'm Wendell Jones and welcome to this edition of our program. And on our program today we are talking about the 50th anniversary of Nygard International. Peter Nygard has been around the world doing some wonderful things, and this year, all year, he is celebrating the 50th anniversary with a number of events, not only in Canada, the United States, but around the world. He has made quite a name for himself in the fashion business. He has thousands of employees and millions of people around the world who look at his fashion, women in particular, who have been buying his apparel on a regular basis for many, many years, for 50 years. And so we congratulate him, and it's our pleasure to welcome him on our program today. Peter Nygard, it's good to see you.
Always good to be here. You're such a good friend, by the way. For how many years now? We've been
many years.
30 years now.
Yes,
oh, gosh.
Many years.
Yeah.
And it's good that you have been in the Bahamas doing the wonderful things that you have been doing since what, 1973?
1973, yeah.
Yes, that's about 45 years.
Yes, and I became a I think I became permanent citizen in 78.
In 78?
Yeah, 78, yeah.
Very good. And
you know, an interesting thing was that I was born in Finland. We immigrated to Canada. And then of all the countries in the world that I could actually join in and become a resident and adopt, it was Bahamas. Yes. You know, I had all the choices in the world, and I've been traveling all over the world, and here I came to Bahamas, and it's been such a great country.
You've made the Bahamas your home, your second home, I believe, and Bahamians have welcomed you very warmly in many ways, particularly in the sporting community.
Particularly sporting community, you know, and I've been an athlete myself all my life, and was in the Olympics myself, and my ambition was all the time to be a track and field athlete, you know, as growing up. So I'm so close to the whole world of athletes, and when I saw this tremendous skill level here, the genes that we have here is per capita perhaps one of the best in the world. It just gave me such a thrill to live vicariously through these athletes themselves, you know, the Golden Girls and the Knights and the volleyball players and the boxers. And yeah. It didn't matter which athletes came on, man, I'm their supporter.
Yes, and you've been working out with athletes over the years in the Bahamas, eh?
Oh, man, I certainly have. You know, I just played volleyball again after 2 years with the Bahamian national team, you know. And it was like a reunion. None of us have played, you know, for a long time. Yes. You know, Ronaldo's and you know, and the boys, you know. So we played Sunday night at 2 o'clock in the morning, like the good old days, you know. And because my knees went on me, you know, and now I just got some work done on them again, and yeah, I'm playing, and those guys were not looking as good as they used to. I said, "You guys are out of shape." You know, but it was a fun game, you know.
Well, for your age, doing what you're doing, I think you're in fantastic shape. But 50 years in fashion, it's a pretty long time.
I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. It seems like I just started yesterday. And I go through it, and my God, it's 50 years. And you know what, Wendell? I feel like I'm starting all over again. I'm reinventing the whole wheel. This is a whole new way of doing business, what we're doing now. I have to reinvent the product. The Slims is a brand new product. Mm-hmm. You know, happens to become the #1 pant in the world, mm-hmm. You know, but I had to create that pant to keep up with the latest generation of what fashion needs are for a woman. Then we got another big issue. We got a huge push now on internet. And all the bricks and mortar stores, the department stores are all collapsing, and the internet is overwhelming everything. And so it's a whole new way of selling, a whole way of designing, you know. We're in a completely different business now. Yeah. And I had to learn all that myself and again. You know, I sort of fell behind in the electronic world, you know, the iPhones and visual communication and all the new language that was going on. And I had to refresh that. And now I'm getting damn good at it. You know, we live by this guy. Yes, you know, I do all my business by this guy. Yes, you know, yes. So it's an interesting era that if you don't keep up with the latest generation, then you die. But I am keeping up.
Yes, very good. Yeah. Go look back at the 60s when you started. You set out to do what? in the 1960s. It was 1968, wasn't it?
68, that's right. You have a very good memory, yeah. And we did that new tape. Did you ever?
Yes,
you
yes.
played that, yeah. It's my first showing of our generation of our businesses. And of course, the big program is going to be, and you're going to be there in September 14th. You know, we got Who's Who there celebrating it. And the 60s, I looked at those tapes, you know, not that much has changed.
Is that right?
I'm serious. I looked at that pant program of mine there, and there's even a little commercial about the Leah commercial, you know, that's maybe 35 years old now. Most played commercial in Canada ever, and I could still replay it, and it looks very much like Slim's. So I've been in that business all my life. I've been in the pant business all my life. And you know the reasons? The pant business is because it's the toughest of all businesses. It's the toughest to fit, you know. So I've always sort of adopted the very toughest one, and you can't conquer the toughest one, then the rest is easy, you know. And I've been known for my pants all my life. I've been known for my fit all my life, and I'm finding that the pant business, I'm still the king of it. I started it with that. It made me famous, and we continue on. And Slim is just one more pant. Now we have to call it Slims because it's not a traditional trouser and it's not a jean. It's not a legging. So it's something in between there, you know. So I named it Slim to make you slim, you know. So I gave it a whole new name, and that's becoming a name in the industry now, you know, the word Slim. You know.
When you started, what you sought to achieve in the 60s? I believe that you set out to be very successful, of course. But what did you see back then?
This is a very good statement about seeing. One of my big assets has been I've been always very visionary, and could sort of see the future. You know, I saw in the 60s the advent of women wearing pants. She was wearing skirts, very little pants. I saw her wearing pants, and I did a survey to find out what kind of pants she would like to wear, and that became that pull-on pant. I made the first pull-on pant out of double knit wool in the world, you know. And then second of all, for spring, I made the first polyester pull-on pant for spring, the first one, and they took off like wildfire. So women wanted to start seeing and wanted to start wearing pants as well. No one was really doing that. And I did some surveys, but I saw that I didn't know any better. I came in the industry, I didn't know anything about it, so I just tried to figure it out, and visionary, and took some surveys, etc., and I found out what the woman wanted. But the key question is pants. I saw the need for pants. I decided to dominate the word pant, and I've been doing that for forever now, for 50 years.
And you took over a business that did not focus or wasn't focusing on that, eh?
No, it wasn't focusing on, you know, we were making suits, you know, jacket and skirt suits, and, you know, and dresses, and that kind of sort of sportswear. Very little pants, you know, and I took that over, and the gentleman that I joined with for a very brief period of time already sort of wanted to start introducing jeans, you know, because the jean market was growing at the time. And that's actually what I joined him. I joined as the sales manager for his new jean line called Tiger Jeans. Zero sales, a whole new concept, and I bought into it. I gave a big job in Eaton's. I was a golden hair boy. And I took this big gamble on this crazy scheme about the fact that this pant, called a jean pant, would actually become the biggest thing in the history of this world, and it did.
Yes.
But it was just like the intuition about it, you know.
Yes. And when did you take over the company? How did that happen?
You know, I joined it in December 1st. I remember all the time, and he sent me to the Western country for a week and the Eastern for a week to be a salesman, to New York for a week, and then there was 1 week of holidays, Christmas holidays. Then January 1st, the gentleman, my partner then, went to a Mayo Clinic. January 15th, he phones me from Mayo Clinic and says, "Peter, I got 2 months to live." They opened me up and I was full of cancer. There goes my training. Peter, you have to run this thing. run it. I joined in, know nothing about it, you know, as a 25-year kid, and now I got this whole thing on my shoulders, you know, it was only an $800,000 business, but nevertheless it was a business, and I was expecting to take 3 years to learn it, and there I was, thrown into it, and then never looked back, never looked back. Yeah. It was actually, in some ways, it was a blessing that I was not trained in it, because I was not trained in its bad ways. So I was forced to find my own way in it, and necessity is mother of invention. And I reinvented a lot of things in it, you know.
Yes. So you revamped the business.
I revamped the business completely. Some of the most famous things I did is in my hang tag I included a questionnaire, and to find out what the customer really wants. No one really was asking the customer what they want. Everybody just thinks that the buyer tells you what they want, and as if the buyer knows. And I went right to and asked the customer with a big questionnaire. You know the biggest issue there? Thank you for asking. Nobody seems to care what we really want. I can't find what we want in the department stores. For example, at that era was the new era, like it has been now with the new young generations taking over, you know, and everything has to be young, you know, and there were skirts that are, you know, midway to your calf, and you know, you can see your waist and your six pack. Well, 90% of the population don't have six packs, you know, and they said to me, "Mr. Nygard, I would like to have a skirt below my knee. You know, my knees are not so pretty anymore, etc., etc." I could not sell a skirt below my knee to the buyer. So I had to, and I hated to say this word, I had to lie to them. And I don't like to lie. And they said, "How long is that skirt going to be, young man?" I said, "Well, of course it's going to be short." "Well, it doesn't look like that." "Well, I'll make it right for you." And then I came down to ship it. And I either had to ship it to the thigh here, or what I believe to be right, I shipped it long. And my heart is in my throat, because that customer was going to send it back. Flew out of the stores. They phoned me up. "What did you do with that skirt?" I said, "Well, I made it the way the customer thinks." "Congratulations, you got the hottest skirt."
Yes, right.
But it really went right to the consumer at the end of the day, you know, and I did not buy into the buyer's own philosophies, etc. And at that market, I found I immediately start dealing directly with the consumer. And you know, this takes me back right to the word about athletes. I dealt right with the athletes. I did not deal with their associations. I was dealing with the athletes. I was dealing directly with it. I went straight to the person who's doing it. You know?
So you were actually giving people what they wanted, giving the consumer what they wanted.
Giving the ultimate consumer what they wanted. It wasn't just giving the buyer what she wanted. I was giving her customer what she wanted. So all of a sudden, almost day one, I knew more than that buyer. Amazing. I just started in this business.
Yeah. And so that was the 60s, and the 70s came along, and you just kept changing the fashion to suit the various tastes and styles. Eh?
Yeah, we gained positions now on our retail floors as we became really very quickly the #1 supplier for every major retailer in Canada.
In Canada.
Yeah, and whatever after that, there are separate good incidents as to what gave me that credibility. But what gave me that credibility is that one example and a couple of other ones. And then I happened to be right. And then once you're right, people start believing you. You know, it's nothing like being right to be believed. So then when we said this fashion's in, fashion was in, and we were able to sell and sell. And we had most of the fashion that was coming down the line, we covered it. We were there with whatever the era was at the time, you know. And with the pleated skirts, or, you know, whatever the fashion. At the end of the day, each generation had a different major theme, as we see on the fashion show. You know,
you were designing and producing mainly for the Canadian market, or when did you find that you really wanted to internationalize your brand?
Very, very early. Very early. We were selling into the United States already in the early 70s. And to me, it was not a Canadian market, it was a North American market. That market, south of the border, looked very, very big. And so we were selling in major department stores, in Nordstrom's, and some of the department stores already across the border, you know, way back in the 70s. And ultimately, and we were, by the way, one of the few Canadians who could succeed in that. Most Canadian manufacturers go to the United States fail. You know, there was only a handful of us who succeeded. You know, we've been one of them, but most of the people would have a big loss. Because that market was always tougher. There's just more competition, you know, a lot more competition, you know.
Yeah. You had to, however, assemble with you quite a number of fashion professionals to do the kind of work that you wanted and to expand the business as you wanted it.
Yeah. It's interesting about this word fashion and about designing and why I was able to grasp it. And it came to the fact that you really had to be analytical. I designed from being analytical, figuring it out, and then on top of that analysis, I was creative. So I sort of had both sides of my brain working. I was straight A student in mathematics and logic and statistics. So I could always figure out what the customer really wanted. So it was never a matter of me just sort of doing what I sort of feel. It was what my mathematics told me. This was checking out at 8%, this was checking at 12%, you know, and I figured that out. And then I said, well, now this new one, does it look better than that old one? You know, and if his answer is yes, I made it look better, and then I could figure out it's going to even sell better than that. But it was all basically what you call mathematical type of designing, you know. And that's what really was missing in most people's agendas. Most people only have that one side of their brain working, you know. And I know you have both, because I see your art over there, for example, you know. And then you have this kind of business as well. Not that many people have that. Not that people have that, you know. And I'm too an artist.
Yes.
Going back to school, I got all this similar kind of art, you know.
Yes. You had to focus, however, in order to make Nygard International the phenomenal success that it is, on some serious marketing, your marketing strategy. We want to talk a little bit about that. Let's take a break, though. We are on this program, this special program, as we talk about the 50th anniversary of Nygard International with Peter Nygard. We'll come right back.